I'm trying, but it's not. It's my laptop. The internet
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Are we ready to go? بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. We're here to talk about secrets of silence and speech in this beautiful place. And to begin with, I want to emphasize how happy we are to have you here in this beautiful place. And the quality of what we present is always because of you. The teacher is able to give according to the audience that receives. And if you have an audience that's not interested, teachers can't give. They won't give, in fact. But when you have an audience that wants the knowledge, then they find in themselves treasures they didn't even know they had. So we will be studying a synopsis from Imam al-Ghazali's Kitab al-Ihya, Ihya Ulum al-Din, and we will be looking at chapters 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, and 29. Insha'Allah. And this is all about apertures, about the calamities of the tongue. But I called it secrets of silence and speech. And we're beginning with the chapter 24. Probably today we'll do, in this lecture, try to do the first and second chapters or sub-chapters of that. So, one of the most important things is that we cease to take things for granted. We live in a world of miracles. Our own existence is one of the greatest miracles. Your existence. The mountains, the trees, everything that we have. And waking up spiritually is waking up so that we don't take anything for granted. We understand the miraculous nature of everything, even the human breath, which we do all the time, or the heartbeat. But that miracle that we want to focus on in these next 3 days is the miracle of speech, which is one of the most amazing gifts that God gave to the human being. And this is the gift of al-bayan, the gift of articulate speech. And it is fundamentally connected to the secrets of the heart and the intellect and the spirit and the deepest recesses of the human soul. If you want your heart to be right, your tongue has to be right. If you want to access your heart, then you have to use your tongue properly. So if there's nothing else that we get out of these meetings, but to understand, to wake up to the way we talk and to what we say, then that would be success. The secret of bayan, of articulate speech, enables us to delve into the treasure chest of unlimited knowledge that you have in yourself, that each of us have in ourselves. We are created, each of us, with a marvelous fitra, a primordial constitution, a primordial self. And this fitra is filled with everything. Knowledge of good and evil, knowledge of God, knowledge of first principles, the desire to worship God, the love of God, all of that is there. And we delve into that through the gift of bayan, of articulate speech. Therefore, our tongues are the great mediators between ourselves and our secrets, between our realities and our potentials, and all the wisdom and knowledge that the human heart and the human intellect and the human spirit is capable of. Okay, so the tongue is extremely important. And it is a relatively unique gift. We human beings have it. Who else has it other than we? The angels have it. Who else have it other than the angels and us, the jinn, the spirits? All of us have this incredible gift of articulate speech. In fact, often the angels and the jinn are much more articulate than we are. But this is something that distinguishes us from insects and from fishes and from land animals and birds. Although we can talk about the language of the birds and we can talk about the language of the whales, and we know that they communicate, but they don't communicate with intelligent, with articulate speech of the same order that we use in language. They communicate, no question about that. Ants communicate, bees communicate, the whales in the sea communicate, but not the way we do. In fact, many of the animals can communicate to us. And those of you who know animals well, you know that they talk to you. If you raise chickens and you come into your chicken coop, and they all come to your feet, it means you are not feeding me everything I need. That's what it means. It means you're not giving me something I need. It doesn't mean I love you. It means please give me something that's missing. As a rule, though, animals and birds do not show the same degree of articulate, self-conscious, measured, and careful speech that we human beings and the angels and the jinn have. Again, God can give this gift to whomever he wants. So on the last day, the earth will speak, and even parts of our bodies will bear a testimony. God puts that gift wherever he wants. The hudhud, the beautiful bird, the hoopoe, spoke to Solomon. So these things are in the realm of possibility, but they're not in the realm of customary experience. That doesn't happen customarily. The gift of articulate speech is a major sign and a buttress, a support of the trust, the amana, and the stewardship, the khilafah, that you bear and that we all bear. This is what makes that reasonable. This is what makes that possible. Your gift to communicate, but in a very special, very thoughtful, very articulate way. And therefore we have to train ourselves to use our speech carefully. And traditional people were often like that. Most traditional people, whether they're the Chinese or the Arabs or the Greeks, or the First Nations of America, they were very careful about speech. And they cultivated it with great finesse. But we live in an age where we're often very careless about the way we speak. Okay, and this is not good. We want to wake up to this gift and to use it properly, bi-idhnillahi ta'ala. So it means we have to train ourselves to speak. We have to train ourselves to be conscious of what are we saying? Why are we saying it? How are we saying it? Truthful, articulate speech is one of the greatest pleasures of paradise. Right? This is the gift you have in paradise. In paradise, there's no laghu, there's no laghia, there's no empty speech. Every word that the believers speak in the garden, whether they are the angels, the jinn, or the human being, all three of us will be together in the garden. But every word we say will be beautiful. It will be filled with meaning. There will be no emptiness and there will be no harm. The word kalima in Arabic, which is a word, the root of that in Arabic, kaf, lam, mim, is what? Jaraha, to wound. To wound. Nothing can wound like a word. Isn't that true? And God's blessed this beautiful land of Lebanon and all of our Muslim countries. God give peace to Syria and to Iraq and to Libya and to Egypt and to all of our Muslim countries, Somalia and to Yemen. But these horrible civil wars, they began with what? The tongue, didn't they? They begin with it. You don't fire a bullet before you shoot a word. And when you have violent speech, you will have violence in the wake of it. You prepare for violence by words. Words wound. Words wound. And one of the things we have to train is don't wound people with your words. Your words have got to be graceful and they've got to be blessing. And we want words that heal, not words that wound. But again, that's one of the greatest gifts of paradise. We will speak to each other in the garden, inshallah. May we be together forever in the garden, but then we will speak in a way that is vastly superior to the way that we're speaking right now. And we will think thoughts that are so profound, you could not even begin to imagine. So we have to use this gift consciously and carefully as the great Adamic trust of the children of Adam and this great paradisial reward. So if you want to restore a people, and God has blessed us to have a connection to Sheikh Abdul Qadir al-Jilani, the Sheikh of Salah ad-Din Ayyubi, the Sheikh of Nur ad-Din Zengi, the greatest reformer ever, maybe in history, certainly in the history of Islam. Okay, and he knows how to reform. Sheikh Abdul Qadir al-Jilani knows how to reform. But if you want to reform a people, and you want to restore a people, you've got to restore their language. You've got to give them back the power of articulate speech. And we live in the age of plastic words. words that they make you feel all kinds of feelings, positive and negative, but you don't really know what it means. One of our brothers or sisters yesterday used the word dynamic. And then another asked, how do you say that in Arabic? How do you say dynamic in Arabic? Dynamiki, right? But dynamic is a very good example of a word that's just positive. But what does it mean? You know, and the opposite of dynamic is what? Static. This is static. The wall is static. You don't want it to be dynamic. Right? And you're dynamic because you, but it's very important to bring words back to their meanings. And here the dictionary is also your best friend. Because our dictionaries, whether they're English or French, French is a very precise language, by the way. And many of you know that, because many of you know French really well. French, in many ways, is much more exact than English. It's very precise. But our dictionaries in French, English, German, Arabic, Persian, they're very precise. And we want to get back into that. My wife, God bless her, is a very good teacher. But one of the things she always teaches her students, bring the dictionary to class. And when you use a word, look it up and tell me what that word means. And use that word correctly. You have to restore language. We live in the reign of the plastic word. The word that has 100 or 1,000 or countless connotations, like dynamic. All the connotations are positive. And not a single denotation. But what exactly does that mean? Nature. Nature has positive connotations, but what does it mean? Does nature have a beginning? Does nature have a persona? How did nature do all these amazing things? Nature is a stand-in for God. You see, so this is very important. And the more ancient the language, by the way, the more profound and precise its speech. And those of you who have the opportunity to study languages, you probably know that. Greek, my God, not the ancient Greek is extremely precise. In fact, they say you cannot learn Greek and not have intellect. You know, and our masters, like the Sheikh al-Akbar, they used to say that God sent down hikmah on the hand of the Chinese. They're masters of crafts. And on the language, on the intellect of the Greeks. And on the tongue of the Arabs. And the Arabic language is one of the most ancient on the face of the earth. And we know that by comparative linguistics. And you go back to the language that the Quran was revealed in, and it's absolutely exact, precise, spiritually illuminating. So this tells us also a great deal about ancient human beings, that they weren't barbarians. These are people who could speak better than you and I. But if you want to destroy a people, destroy their language. And this is why we are honored to have here Brother Ali, Brother Sidi Ahmed James, Brother Ali Keeler. But one of the gifts that these wordsmiths do is to try to bring language back. And they use different modes of language because you have to speak to people in the words they understand. You know? So the way that Brother Ali speaks in his hip-hop is not going to be the way that, let's say, Yusuf Islam speaks in his song, because they're catering to different people with different needs and different wounds. Okay? But you've got to speak to them, and you've got to wake them up with that language. It's hard to be real, right? And we have to be real. So you destroy, a people destroy their language. When Spain and Portugal were conquered by the Crusaders, and when Sicily was conquered by the Crusaders. Sicily was a 100% Muslim island. Did you know that? 300 years. Spain and Portugal were like Syria and in some ways Lebanon. There was a bigger majority of Muslims in Spain and Portugal than in Syria, especially at the time of the Crusades, and much more than this beautiful country of Lebanon. And the Arabic cultivated in Spain and Portugal and Sicily was profound. One of the first things the conquerors did was get rid of it. It becomes a crime, in fact, a capital crime, punishable by death, to teach Arabic and to speak it. If you want to destroy a people, destroy the language. You want to restore a people, restore the language. The Prophet ﷺ was given the best language. And the Quran was revealed to him in the best language. And in an ancient, pristine, primordial language. This is one of the great secrets of the Quran. You can never fathom everything that is there. But the Prophet was given Jawami'ul Kalim. Right? Jawami'ul Kalim. He was given words that are concise and precise, yet that contain unlimited meanings, but which everyone can understand. Isn't that incredible? Jawami'ul Kalim. So the simplest person, even a child, can understand what he says. And the most profound person, an enlightened person, can never fathom fully the scope of what he said. This is amazing. And of course, poets and wordsmiths, they strive to do this, to find the most precise expression. Bi-idhnillahi ta'ala. So, such words, these beautiful words, words of truth, words that are real, they're not plastic, they're not weasel words. Weasel words, you know, a weasel, I know you must know about weasels. You've got to have some weasels in these mountains. But a weasel will go to a chicken egg, at least in my country. I don't know if they do that in Lebanon. But it will put a little hole in the egg and get out all the yolk and leave the shell intact. So you've got an egg that is empty. And weasel words are like that. They don't mean anything. They're worse than plastic words. So we have weasel words too, but most of our words are plastic words. You can bend them any which way. But we want to get words that you know, are real. Bi-idhnillahi ta'ala. And real words are apertures, openings, apertures of truth. They are apertures of truth. They have supreme, timeless adequacy. Adequacy is a great word, by the way. And we won't go into why right now, but they're adequate. In other words, they're able to take you as far as you need to go to fly. They can take you all the way and give you wings to fly. They are perfectly sufficient to touch on eternal truth and give us merciful contact with it. I think that means, what happened? Huh? Okay, how come we're still speaking? I mean, my microphone's still working. But, you know, so this is what we want. You know, we want these words that are apertures of truth, that are capsules of light. Capsules of light. And words that have beautiful connotations, but clear denotations. And in our civilization of Islam, everything we did whether it was medicine, whether it was mathematics, whether it was fiqh or usul al-fiqh, everything is defined. You see, everything is defined. When I use the word huduth, temporality, what do I mean? I mean existence after nothingness. I mean al-wujudu ba'd al-adam. This is brilliant. What is a nominal? What is a noun? A person, place, or thing. No, that's not a definition. That's an illustration. A noun is a word that has a meaning in itself and is not connected to time. Ooh. This is civilization. We were people of definition. We knew what we meant. We knew what we were saying, and therefore we could communicate. And therefore we could create knowledge. We could build palaces of knowledge. Speech is a lordly quality. Speech is sifatun rabbaniyya. It is a lordly quality. What does that mean? When we talk about God in Islam, we identify 13 attributes that are sufficient and adequate to understand his greatness. They're not the whole story, they're the beginning, but they're adequate. Necessary being, 1. 5 negative attributes. No beginning, no end, no need, no likeness, no other, 1. Okay, that's 6 attributes. Then we have 7 more, and these we call existential, or we call positive. Sifatun thubutiyya. And these are what? Life, you're alive. Knowledge, you have knowledge. Will, you have will. You decided to come here, and you decided to put on that hat today, which is beautiful. Okay? Power, you had the power to come here, to execute your will. And then hearing, seeing, and speech. So these are 7 attributes. Life, knowledge, will, power, hearing, you can hear, you can see, and speech. And these are your lordly qualities. You're not divine, but you share these with the divine so that you can know the divine, and so that you can approach the divine, and so that you can serve the divine, and so also that you can keep the trust, and you can be good for this world. You can be good and beneficial for this world. So speech is a lordly quality. Therefore, do not take it for granted. Don't take your eyes for granted. Don't take your ears for granted. Don't take your knowledge for granted, or your will, or your power, or your life. Wake up to these. And all of these lordly qualities that we have, and of course we're going to emphasize here speech. These qualities, if we use them properly, they elevate us to the highest of the high. And here, you are in a class all of your own that puts you above the angels and above the jinn. When it comes to articulate speech and to poetic speech, the jinn are amazing, and the angels are articulate. You know, but the thing is that you are the son or the daughter of Adam. So you have angelic qualities, you have jinn qualities, but you also have the qualities of that mountain. You have the qualities of that tree. You have the qualities of the mud and the earth. You have the quality of the insects. You are the jami'. You bring everything together. And that's why once you get yourself in order and you put the lordly qualities in the right place, you become the highest of the high. higher than the angels, and higher even than the best of the jinn. This is your gift, and this is why you are the Khalifa. The jinn are not Khalifas, nor are the angels. Again, if we misuse these lordly qualities, and especially the quality of speech, then we become the lowest of the low. And that's why, if we look at our world today, everywhere we go, language has been abused and misused, and we're doing it more and more every day. Again, if you want to destroy a people, destroy their language. And this is very important. We live in the age of pornography, which is the most blatant misuse of image ever. And pornography is a crime against every woman on the face of the earth. But pornography prepares the way for the totalitarian state. It makes men impotent, by the way. It destroys their manliness. It does. But it prepares the way for the totalitarian state. There's a big game going on out there.
Yes, sir.
There's a big game going on out there. And it sounds like it's fun. And they will give you all the treats they can give you, but they're destroying the human race. And they're preparing for a monoculture and a super government that is probably not in your interest or mine. So language is really important. Lordly speech, especially prophetic speech and revealed speech, as in the Quran, is always linked with infinite knowledge, because it's linked with divine knowledge, and divine knowledge is infinite. It encapsulates and mean. It encapsulates meanings that can never be fully explained. The more you explain them, the more they come. They can never be fully grasped, even though you've got the word. Abu Yazid al-Bistami, God be pleased with him, he said, how amazing that you can listen to the adhan and not die. And not die. In other words, do you realize what's being said? If the full force of those words were to manifest to you, you might have a heart attack. But again, we're negligent people. We're used to it. We've heard it 1,000 times, many more times than that. But these real words of God are linked with infinite divine knowledge. There is nothing that exists. There is nothing that does not exist. There is nothing that is real. There is nothing that is imagined. There is nothing that is created or uncreated. There is nothing that is creator or non-creator, but that it is in that speech. It's contained in that speech. And it gives you access to it. Nothing that comes under the heading of knowledge, whether divine or human, does not also come under the heading of articulate speech. And in our theology, knowledge and speech are related to the same thing, aren't they? Both the knowledge of God and the speech of God are related to the infinite knowledge of God. Rumi says, since you cannot bear the unveiled light, drink in the words of wisdom, for their light is veiled. The words of a great poet like Rumi, and inshallah our brother Ahmad James. These are words that the light in them is veiled. Why? So that I can take it. I wouldn't be able take them. It would be too much for me. So they're like capsules of light. They release light to you. And the more that you're prepared for that, the more that you're purified, the more that you're intact, the more light you receive. And that's why you take something like Al-Fatiha, which most of you learned when you were little children. It was beautiful to you as a little child. But is it not even more beautiful today? And will it not be even more beautiful tomorrow? That's the reality of these things, if our hearts are alive. So Rumi says, drink in the words of God. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. And drink in the words of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And drink in the words of the awliya. And the wise men and the wise men of all ages. كل كلام يخرج وعليه كسوة القلب الذي منه خرج. Every word comes out, every form of speech comes out of the heart, bearing the drapery, the kiswa of the heart from which it came. I don't mind having the drapery of Rumi's heart in my heart. I don't mind having the drapery, of Ahmed James in my heart, or Brother Ali, or Ali Kilo. Okay, this is a beautiful drapery. And of course, what about the prophets? What about the Quran? So these great words are capsules of light that release to you, little by little, the knowledge and the light, that guides you to the truth. By memorizing the Quran and living with it, God enable us all to do that beautifully. By memorizing the blessed hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, by memorizing blessed words of dhikr, we absorb into our souls perfect words. Kalimatun tammat. Perfect words. Kalimatun tammat. Good words. Kalimatun tayyibat. And their light is again veiled as a mercy to me, because I couldn't bear it. And a mercy to you. And they release that light as you grow, according to your ability to receive it and to understand it, and your ability to bear it. In the path of Shaykh Abdul Qadir Jilani, may God be pleased with him, we begin the path with the word al-asas, which many of you know and have. And it's basically very simple. Hasbunallah wa ni'mal wakeel, astaghfirullah al-azim, la ilaha illallah al-malik al-haqq al-mubin, which is the Tahleel of Imam Ali. All of these words have special stories. And then Salat on the Prophet. In the beginning, these words are, why? The medicine to get my heart right. Because I can't take too much. There's too much confusion in me. There's too much delusion in me. And if you give me all kinds of dhikr, I'll go crazy. And I'll be energetic and I'll be having dreams and I'll be saying crazy words. But it's all delusion because I'm not healthy yet. So the first thing is to get the heart sound. And that's why actually even in our path, some people, and you may know this, I know many examples of this, you might know one or two or more. But some people, when they begin, the dhikr actually hurts them. One particular person who is, in my opinion, a saint, she said, I feel like I have an axe in my head. And it took almost 2 years for her to get to a position where she could do the dhikr regularly. Why? Because there were problems in here. There were big problems in here. And some of them she didn't even know about. But they would block her growth. Okay, so we've got to deal with that. We've got to get her whole. And I don't want to talk about her because she might listen to the class. And may she forgive me for even making a reference to her. But may she forgive me for that. But the thing is that, you know, you've got to be set right. And then you can grow. And that's why anyone who, if you start the path, they give you thousands of adhkar to do, maybe they don't know what they're doing. Because, yeah, you're going to have quote-unquote states, energy states. They're not spiritual states, they're energy states. You know, but this is not wholesome because there's too much light there and you can't deal with it. So, these words, that's why we begin with something little. So that little by little, step by step, stage by stage, you are prepared for health and, you know, being intact, and then travel, wayfaring, arrival, and entrance. And we will increase. But increase when it's for your benefit. You can now take that for the fuller and fuller illumination and understanding of your Lord and of yourself. Again, the words of Abu Yazid al-Bistami, how amazing it is that a man does not die when uttering the call to prayer. That's what he said. I got it wrong. I usually do. He said, how amazing it is that a man or a woman does not die when uttering the call to prayer. You know, there's so much there. So, speech, therefore, is very important. Again, the word kalima, word or kalam, comes from the root to wound, jarah. And many of us use words to wound other people, don't we? Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never harm me. That's not true. That's not true. You can hit me with a stick or a stone, I'll get over it. The word you say, I may never get over it. Words hurt. And there are some people who learn that easily and quickly because people use words to hurt them. So they learn words to hurt other people. Okay, and this is, of course, a great misuse. But one of the things Imam al-Ghazali now states is that know that words are swords. They are swords. But they are two-edged swords. Both sides are sharp. Okay, and of course the two-edged sword is used as a metaphor for something that can cut your enemy, but also cut you. So you have to be very careful. And if you use these words to cut other people and to hurt other people, you are cutting yourself, even though you may not know it. All of our faculties, all of our emotions, all of our inclinations are created good. Even anger and appetite. Right? We've talked about that before. Anger is really bad, right? No, anger is really good. But you've got to control it. You've got to control it. And if you control your anger, then you become courageous. If you control your anger, you become generous. Cowards cannot be generous. They live in fear of poverty, even if they're wealthy. Poor people can be generous because they're courageous, even though they don't have a penny. So anger is essential to your constitution, but you've got to control it. You've got to be able to ride it, and it doesn't ride you. And appetite, shahawat, appetites. All of these are created good.
Anger is created to keep evil at bay. And anger is created with intuitions about what is harmful. They're not always right. People get angry about things that are not important. But anger is created with an intuition of what is harmful. And you've got to perfect that. So you know what is harmful and what is not. In martial arts, which we used to study, and which many of our brothers in the East study very much, one of the first things you learn in martial arts is to identify whether the attack is going to hit you or not. Okay, if a person's throwing a punch, so I have to know, just like this, is it going to hit me or not? Because if it's not going to hit me, I don't do anything. Don't block it. Just let it go. If it's going to hit me, then you have to block it. So also, we have to know what is really harmful. That we have to block. And there are many things that are not. Let them go. Let them go. Appetites are there to what? To acquire benefits. To acquire benefits. So you have to eat. You have to sleep. You have to drink. And in La Palouk, you have to have some warm clothes. You know, as some of us discovered last evening, as it got colder and colder. You know, I hope you brought good clothes, right? Because it gets cold here at night. So you have to keep your body warm. And your appetite connects with that also. So everything God created in you, everything, every inclination, every attribute is created good. You have in yourself miserliness, بخل and shuh. وَمَنْ يُوقَ شُحَّ نَفْسِهِ فَأُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْمُفْلِحُونَ. Whoever is protected from the extreme miserliness of their souls, they are the ones who are successful. But the verse indicates that you have in you shuh. And you've got to have it. It's just, don't use it with regard to the beggar. Use it with regard to your light. I don't want to give up any of my life. I don't want to lose a single good deed. Ramadan is the month of fasting. Fasting is for Allah. And that means also that on the day of judgment, your fasting will not be taken away from you because it belongs to your Lord. Whereas all my other good deeds, I may have to part with them. Because I did oppression to this person, I did injustice to that person, I failed to take care of that person, I neglected this person, and maybe I lied, maybe I cheated, maybe I backbit. All of us do that, so they take my hasanat. I may have no hasanat on the day of judgment. And that's where I am shahih. I don't want to lose a single one. I don't want to give a single one up. You can have infinite hasanat. And if I have hasanat and they increase you, that's great, but don't take mine. I want mine for me, right? And you should be that way too. Don't be generous with your good deeds. Be good. Make other people good. But protect your good deeds. You need them. So, all of our qualities are created good. This is God's mercy. And one of the great qualities of speech is that this amazing gift you have has the power to make you the member of a community. We are a community. We have common goals. We have common objectives. But this community that we belong to is rooted in what? La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah. Those are words. That is speech. And by saying those words, I belong to you. You belong to me. We belong to each other. And without that, we don't have that. So this is one of the powers of speech. It makes us one brotherhood and one sisterhood. Speech enables us to remember and to do dhikr, to worship, to pray, to explore God's oneness. It enables us to show thanks to God. Alhamdulillah wa shukru lillah. And those words are God's words, so that they say much more than I mean. And they're adequate to praise Him because He praised Himself. And they're adequate to thank Him because He's the Shakur. He is the one who recognizes good and rewards it. They're adequate to praise Him and to glorify Him. Most important, speech gives me and you access to God's forgiveness, His tawbah, His turning back, and His mercy, despite how unworthy I am and how unworthy we may be. But the Word opens the door, doesn't it? No faculty of ours is potentially as beneficial or as harmful as the two-edged sword of the tongue, the faculty of speech. And that's why this is really important, and this is spiritually absolutely essential. There is no path without your getting control of your tongue. You know, and God bless our marriages. God give us good marriages. But what destroys marriage time and time again? The tongue, right? What we as fools say to our spouses. And then they retaliate. And if you're a man, she's usually better at it than you. You think you're going to wound her? Oh. That's not going to happen. Usually that's not going to happen. There is no limit, Imam al-Ghazali says, to the infinite good the tongue can bring you. No limit. There is no limit either to the abominations that speech can drag us into. And I think all of us know what we're talking about. Because today's a beautiful day. Today you're beautiful. Most of us are ready for Jumu'ah. But we weren't always like this. And there's times when we've been in the mud and the muck. Some of you probably not. Most of us, including myself, yes. So we know how we can misuse speech to destroy ourselves. Our tongues are generally easy for us to use. That's, of course, when you're speaking your mother's language. You know, if it's a foreign language, then this is one of the most frustrating things with foreign languages. I went to Germany when I was 15 years old. And I thought I knew German, but when I got to Germany, I found out that you're a big beginner. And one of the most frustrating things is that I couldn't understand everything that was being said, and I couldn't. And this was a cultural shock. It's very hard to bear. Very hard to bear. Because you can, when you speak your language, you can say it. But if we speak a foreign language, we can't. But as a rule, speaking the language that we know, it's easy. Right? When you speak Arabic, for example, especially if you speak your dialect, you know what to say. It's easy for you to say it. So the tongue is easy to use. And who gets tired of talking? If you've got listeners, the more you talk, the more you like it. The more you talk, the more you want to talk. In fact, somebody should say, would you please stop? You know, but you just go on and on and on. And who gets tired of talking when we're talking about things we should not be talking about? Right? That's one of the ways you should be suspicious, because if you're really getting a lot of satisfaction out of the speech, it may not be real. It may not be 100%. So the tongue can be the most obedient of all of your faculties to God, and the most helpful to your spouse, to your children. Be careful what you say to your children. You know, a father may say a word to his son in a time of anger and disappointment that he forgets by sunset. And his son will not forget for the rest of his life. His son will not forget for the rest. You wounded your son. Don't do that. Don't do that. You know, this is what happens, isn't it? And our can do that as well. But the tongue is usually way out in front. And again, most people tend to take their speech lightly because it's just a sound and it disappears into space. Not really. It appears that way, but not really. And therefore also Satan uses our tongues against us and against others as his weapon of choice. This is his biggest weapon of all. All acts of speech profoundly affect our hearts and the hearts of others. All acts of speech profoundly affect our hearts and the hearts of others. And silence is gold. Especially when you begin to cultivate speech, then you also cultivate silence so that it is thoughtful silence. Those of you who've studied theology, when we talk about God's speech, we say that God is never silent. We mean by that he is never dumbfounded. He is never without meaning. And also people who use their speech carefully, their hearts are always thinking. You see, their hearts are always thinking. And therefore, their silence is also thought. In fact, we will see that their silence pollinates their intellect and enables them to speak profoundly. Okay, so the Prophet said, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the servant of God's faith will not be right until his heart is right. And his heart will not be right until his tongue is right. لا يستقيم إيمان عبد حتى يستقيم قلبه ولا يستقيم قلبه حتى يستقيم لسانه. This is very, very important. That our faith will never be right until the heart is right. But the heart will not be right until the tongue is right. So the tongue is the key. Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, may God be pleased with him. And he is the greatest of all human beings after the prophets. He is the greatest of them all after the prophet. And he is, of course, the peer, if we can use that word, of the prophets also. The closest of all people to the prophet. The most similar of all people to the prophets. So he's like the keeper of the secrets of the prophet, although he's not a prophet. But we need to imitate him, and he is deep, utterly truthful, utterly real. But Abu Bakr had a habit of putting a pebble in his mouth to keep his tongue under control. And you could do that if you wanted to. People think it's funny. But you could take a beautiful jewel or a beautiful topaz, something like that, and put it in your tongue. Take good care of it. And then before you speak, he put his hand to his mouth and take out his pebble. Most people probably didn't know he had a pebble in his mouth. And I'm sure it was beautiful. After it had been in his mouth, anything would be beautiful. Okay, but that's Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, who is more trained than he. And yet, see, this forces him to think before he speaks. And this is what I have to do. Okay? So this made him always conscious of the speech act. And the fact that speech is a voluntary action. It is an act of will. And we speak so easily. It's as if it were not an act of will, that it were involuntary. But it's not. And you've got to make it an act of will. Then God elevates you tremendously. I intend to say this, therefore I'm going to say it. I intend not to say this, therefore I'm not going to say it. Keep the pebble in my mouth. Really, this is not bad. This is not bad. And again, you've got to understand that speech is an act of will, of irada. And we say that in English we mean voluntary. Voluntary actions are actions of will. Abdullah bin Mas'ud, God be pleased with him. He said, nothing is more deserving of a long prison term than your tongue. Put it in jail. Don't talk so much. Think about it. At-Tawus al-Yamani, the Yemeni peacock, one of the great successors. He would say, my tongue is a wild beast. Lisani sabr. My tongue is a wild animal. If I let it free, it will eat me alive. Again, it's a two-edged sword. If you use this sword irresponsibly, you will be cut. Imam al-Ghazali tells us that it is part of the wisdom of the ancient kings. And here he's going to be talking about the ancient kings of Persia, who were known for their wisdom, and they were actually often very great kings, many of them, like Cyrus the Great. They were great, great kings. But he said that the Persian kings would say, if I speak a word, it owns me. In other words, it becomes the king. Kings are not owned by anyone. But if I speak a word, it becomes the king. I've got to live with that word now. It owns me, and I no longer own it. Meaning I'm not the king of that word anymore, because I spoke it. As long as I do not speak that word, I own it. I remain to be the king. And it does not own me, I own it, I'm the king. This is very wise. This is why kings, especially wise kings, they always had counselors. And they spoke very little. They listened very much. And then they listened to their counselors and they taught privately. Where no one can hear. The Ottomans, God bless them, loved to have flowing water that would go through their palaces or their rooms. The sound of gurgling water is restful, but also it meant that no one can overhear what they're saying. Spies can listen in, but they won't hear anything. So when they speak in low voices, and they speak with their counselors. And then the counselor may speak on behalf of the king. But the king will be very careful about what he says, because what he says, it's going to affect him for the rest of the time. The basic rule of speech. Think 3 times before you speak. We used to say in English, thank you. Think twice before you speak. But I'm going to say that we say, think 3 times before you speak. Number 1, if I can quote my beautiful brother Ali, I'll probably get the quotation wrong, but your speech must be real. It's got to be real. Meaning, speak only what you know or believe to be true. Don't lie. And I am one of the worst offenders, because I like to exaggerate. And I like to talk about history, but I might have forgotten the lesson. So it's like a lot of the things that I say or that we say, if I can include you in the issue, it's not always exact. And this is what we have to work on. I have to work on that. Check it out. Be careful about what you say. Speak only what you know or honestly believe to be true. Number 1. And number 2, speak only what you believe. Let's say what you know or believe will not cause harm. Not cause harm. That's hard, isn't it? And often, I may have something very truthful to say, but it will cause harm. Right? I mean, what if we knew a state secret? If you told people that, you're an enemy of the state, aren't you? People who are guardians of the state, they have to preserve the secrets of the state. And we have some Arab thinkers today. I'm thinking of one in particular. I won't mention his name. He's an Iraqi. He's a great thinker. And he's a military figure. He was a great general. One of the things he said is that the problems with the Arabs, forgive me for speaking about Arabs because I'm not an Arab. I love you, but I'm not an Arab. But this is what he said. He said, we don't keep secrets. And he said that spies could get most of the information that they needed just by taking taxis and talking to taxi drivers. Because generals and commanders would share secrets with taxi drivers. Is that believable? It's what he said. I mean, we don't keep secrets. We don't keep secrets, and you have to keep secrets. If saying that secret will bring harm. And this is why if you're a lawyer, you have to have confidentiality, don't you? If you're a healer, if you're going to heal me, you've got to know all about me. And you have to know what's traumatic in my life. Okay? Now, I might not want people to know that. Okay? I might not want that to be public knowledge. Okay? So, the healer's got to be a person who respects confidentiality. Because the healer cannot heal me if he doesn't know what the trauma is. But he's not going to go tell the world. All right? So, what you know to be true must not be harmful. This is why you've got to think. And then what you want to say, you've got to know and believe that it will truly bring benefit. These are three considerations: truthfulness, being real, and then harm, and then benefit. And if you can't check those three boxes, please don't speak. Please don't speak. And again, we have to speak spontaneously, don't we? In reality, we don't. In reality, you can sit and think a little bit. Nobody will think you're stupid. They will think you're smart, because you are. Okay, but most of us, we hear a word, we've got to have a comeback. And then we're going to say things that are not true. We're going to say things that are harmful. And we're going to say things that are not beneficial. So you've got to check the three boxes. And that's why the pebble comes in very, very, is very helpful. There's a fourth thing also, which is that whenever you do speak, you're going to say something true, you're going to say something that won't harm, and you're going to say something that will actually benefit. And also when you speak, you have to understand that what you say will probably be told. You may say something to a person which is something that's just for them, but they don't know that. So they'll tell other people. And that's where the harm often comes in. Because what you said wouldn't harm her or him. It may harm the people they talk to. So be careful. Be very careful. But even if you've got something beautiful to say, something beneficial to say, beware of hypocrisy. Beware of show. Yeah, showing off. Beware of backbiting. And beware of self-serving speech, which is speech that shows how great you are, how intelligent you are, and you are. Okay, but this is also the spiritual dimension, that I want to be spiritually and psychologically neutral with regard to my beautiful speech, or your beautiful speech, and everything that we do. Tawus al-Yemeni would say, and I'll say it in Arabic because it's hard to say it in English, ما عقل دينه من لم يحفظ لسانه. ما عقل دينه من لم يحفظ لسانه. The person who does not guard his tongue can have no understanding of his religion. The person who does not guard his tongue can have no understanding of his religion. And we might add, based on intellect, although because he's saying aqidah. That's why it's kind of hard to put it in English. But this is really important. If I don't understand the importance of the tongue, then really I don't understand this deen, and I will not be able to understand this deen until I'm able to understand the importance of my tongue. Al-Hasan, God be pleased with him, he's certainly one of the greatest of the successors. And he's right there in a rank with Uwais al-Qarani, who some would say is a Sahabi, but he's either a Sahabi or the first of the successors. But Al-Hasan al-Basri is one of the great heirs of Imam Ali, and Imam al-Hasan and Imam al-Hussein, God be pleased with them. He tells us that the companions and the successors used to say, the believer's tongue stands behind his heart. Lisan al-mu'min min wara'i qalbi.
The tongue of the believer stands behind his heart. What does that mean? It obeys his intellect. Okay? That's what's so hard to do. To get my tongue to obey my intellect. But that's the sign of the real believer. That's why Abu Bakr as-Siddiq has a beautiful pebble in his mouth. So that he will not speak until his intellect says, be careful. Don't say that. Don't say this. Don't use this word. Use that word. Umar ibn al-Khattab is a genius in this effect. There's no one like him. Really? Really? SubhanAllah. I'll give you some examples, but I mean, so this is very important. I want my tongue to be behind my heart, behind my intellect. That takes training. That's difficult. So if he wants to say something, he reflects upon it in his heart 3 times. Is it true? Is it harmful? Is it beneficial? And his intellect obeys his tongue. No, I'm sorry. His tongue obeys his intellect. And then he allows his tongue to say it. Brothers and sisters, that is such a high state. I can't even imagine it. I wish I could. I wish that's who I were. May God make us like that. And really, if we want to be effective in this world, and we want to bring good to this world, we've got to learn that. And we learn it from our masters in particular. And also studying the prophets and the prophets and the wise people of the past. The hypocrite's tongue, he didn't say the unbeliever, he said the hypocrite. And God protect us from that. The hypocrite's tongue stands in front of his heart. It's in charge. And that's why you want to believe and to know, you want to make your speech a voluntary action, an action of will. For most people, it is an involuntary act because it is spontaneous. You're not thinking about it. There's no intellect involved. That's a disaster. And that doesn't mean that I'm a hypocrite because I'm that way so much of the time. But that is the characteristic of the hypocrite. We don't want that. So the hypocrite's tongue stands in front of his heart. It means his intellect obeys his tongue. And he's always trying to find a way out. Okay, what I said was stupid. What I said has implication I never thought of. So how do I get out of that? If he's concerned about something, the hypocrite, he lets his tongue say it immediately, and he does not use his heart to reflect on it. Those are words of wisdom, aren't they? And the great Umar ibn Abdul Aziz, this jewel of the end of the 1st century, and of course these were his lands. All the lands of Islam were his, but especially here in Greater Syria, this is where he was, in Lebanon, Jordan, Palestine, and Syria. But Imam al-Awza'i, and everybody knows who that Imam is, in Beirut. And Imam al-Awza'i is really a great saint. He truly is. He's not just a great legal authority. He is a huge saint. But Imam al-Awza'i tells us that the Caliph, Umar ibn Abdul Aziz, wrote them a letter to al-Awza'i, and to many, many others, and to his governors. And his letter is this long. It's only 2 statements. And this is again tongue. He's using his tongue, his pen. He says, "Amma ba'd." As for what follows, whoever calls death frequently to mind will be content with little in this world. Now, at that time, Umar ibn Abdul Aziz cannot find people to take zakat, money, because we were wealthy, we were powerful. And I could talk to you about that in great detail. It affected the whole economy of the world. We had an agricultural revolution. We had an economic revolution that is incredible. And so the world was a great danger because we had become very wealthy people.
extremely powerful people. So he said, don't forget death. Don't forget death. When we just left the Haram, Al-Makki, I'm coming from pilgrimage by the grace of God, we were praying right next to the place where they bring in the janazas and take them out. So the last thing I saw was janazas coming in and going out. That's not a bad thing to see, because that's where I'm going to, right? We don't want to forget that. But he said, whoever calls death frequently to mind, I've got to go to that place. I've got to meet that destiny. You'll be content with little in this world. Maybe you'll be able to give a long way. And whoever regards his speech as an act of volition, min amalihi, his speech will be little except in what concerns him. Beautiful words, eternal words, of one of the greatest human beings who ever lived. So we want to conclude here. We have just a few minutes. The Prophet said, sallallahu alayhi wasallam, in a hadith in Bukhari and Muslim, and you all know this, من كان يؤمن بالله واليوم الآخر فليقل خيرا أو ليسكت. May we do that. And this is why also control of the tongue is based on belief in the hereafter. If you don't believe in the hereafter, well, do whatever you want. Whoever believes in God and the last day, let him speak good or keep quiet. Let him speak good or keep quiet. The Prophet said, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in another transmission, which has a sanad that is called Jayyid, in a Tabarani, it's got a good transmission. Man samata naja. Man samata naja. Whoever keeps silent is safe. He also said, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, man sarrahu an yaslama fal yalzim as-samt. Man sarrahu an yaslam fal yalzim as-samt. Whoever is pleased to be safe, I would like to be safe. I would like to get out of this world safe and sound. Maybe we should say that, safe and sound. I think that's a good translation. Safe and sound. Let him adhere to silence. The Prophet said, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, أَلَا أُخْبِرُكُمْ بِأَيْسَرِ الْعِبَادَاتِ وأهونها على البدن الصمت وحسن الخلق. That is worth its weight in gold, right? Shall I not inform you of the easiest type of worship? And note that this is worship. This is worship. And the most convenient to the body, the easiest to do, keeping silence and having good character. May we do that. May we do that. The Prophet said, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, رحم الله عبدا تكلم فغنم أو سكت فسلم. رحم الله عبدا تكلم فغنم أو سكت فسلم. Is that not Jawami al-Kalim? This is the Prophet is so beautiful. Everything about him is grace and perfection, especially his tongue is beautiful. Lisanun Arabiyyun Mubin. May God show mercy to a servant of God who either speaks and wins great bounty, great reward, great good, or keeps quiet and is safe and sound. And we are taught by our scholars that dhikr, the remembrance of God, hasbunallahu wa ni'mal wakeel, is the fasting of the tongue. You fast with your body, fast with your tongue too.
and you're doing dhikr, is using the tongue in fast. Because you're speaking. But here it's fasting. The early Muslims would often say, keeping silence brings a person to excellent qualities. فضيلتين. السلامة في الدين. Soundness in your religion. والفهم عن صاحبك. And the ability to understand your friend, your companion. And I need to understand you. It's not just a one-man show. How can we be of any benefit if I don't understand you? If I don't understand you, or you don't understand me? And how can I understand you if I don't listen? We have to be silent. We have to listen. We want to understand our friends. And of course, some of the most difficult human beings are the ones who never listen. He's going to tell you everything, and he doesn't even know who you are. You know, so keeping silence brings you two excellent qualities. Soundness in your religion. And again, if you don't know the value of the tongue, you cannot know this religion. And the ability to understand your friends, your companions. And may our friends be all creation. You know, we don't have, why should we have an enemy? Al-aqil doesn't want to have a single enemy. Al-ahmaq yukthiru min a'da'i. The man or woman of intellect doesn't want a single enemy. Why should I have an enemy? I don't hate anybody. Can't we do good to everyone? Can't we help everyone? Can't we talk to everyone? Okay? So we've got to understand them. And let your speech emerge from thoughtful silence. And that's from listening to other people and knowing who they are and where they are. And people like, again, I'm going to say our beautiful brother Ali and Sidi Ahmed and Ali Kilo. You know, but I'm thinking really of Brother Ali. But he knows his people. He knows his people, right? He is the champion of his people. And may we be that way too. But you can't be their champion if you don't listen to them. You can't be their champion if you don't know their pain, if you don't know their suffering. You know? This is really important. You know, and last night we had the beautiful fireworks. Actually, for me, it's not so beautiful. I love it. But, you know, if you've heard explosions and you've heard gunshots, that's not comfortable. And I looked at my beautiful brother, and I'm not going to say anything, but I saw he's not too happy. Yeah, if you lived in the inner city, maybe you wouldn't be either, because you hear gunshots all the time. You hear explosions all the time. And again, thank you for the fireworks. But understand that there's some people that this frightens them. Okay, so we have to understand those people also. And forgive me if there's any criticism implied by that. I didn't mean that. Because I know that you had to, and they're beautiful. They're beautiful. But the thing is, you've got to understand everybody where they are. A believer's silence should be for thought. His or her gaze should be reflection. Should be for reflection and contemplation. Ibra. Learning lessons. His expression and articulation should be remembrance, dhikr. Our gaze should also include the images, the photos that we take with our cameras and send out to the world. We live in the age of images. Give me images that will make me sound. Don't give me images that will be nightmares and break my heart. And there are images that destroy us, even in cartoons and other things. Images are powerful. So let's stop here. We've got one more point to make, but we're out of time. So we'll start here next time and go to the next lesson. And thank you very much. اللهم وفقنا لما تحبه وترضاه وجعلنا من عبيدك السعداء وأمتنا على كلمة الهدى علمنا ما ينفعنا ووفقنا للعمل بما علمتنا به واجعل ما نحن فيه
خالصا مخلصا لوجهك الكريم يا رب العالمين. اللهم اجعل تجمعنا هذا تجمعا مرحوما وتفرقنا بعد تفرقا معصوما لا شقيا منا ولا محروما. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. It's so wonderful to be here with you. And this is a blessed place. And thank you for the fireworks. Thank